All right, guys, in this video, we're going to get up close and personal part 2. If you didn't watch the first one, I'll put the link up here or in the description box or both. And I'm going to show you combined locks, open ends versus closed ends, the difference in the sizes of my locks, etc., etc. Stay tuned. It took me forever to find this lock, y'all, okay? When I don't want to find it, it's in my face. When I do want to find it, nowhere to be found. But here we go. Here's an example of a combined lock where the top was combined, and you can see where they meet. It's actually like a Y. And you can see what happened was the lock was too thin. And you can even tell like they're thin. It's thin combined, so imagine how thin it was as two individuals. So to save it and not lose one or both locks, she combined the two. And you have a choice to leave it like this, or you could eventually cut off the end. And that way you at least save one lock instead of losing two really thin locks. So that's an example of one of my combined ones. Up next, I'm going to show you how, as my locks have matured, how some of my locks have open ends and some have closed. But open end is not locked. It's actually loose hair at the ends. And some have still what I would consider some of those balls I discussed in that first up close and personal video. And how others, it's not a ball. It's not loose. It's just a straight lock. So hold on. We're going to get close and personal. I know I look crazy. This is here so I don't lose it, okay? Work with me. All right, here's one. As you can see, it's completely loose. I mean, it's actually, the lock, it's loose hair. I mean, if I wanted to put a little braid in that, I could, okay? Let's get closer. As well as, here's one. It's a shorter lock that has the same look. Again, the end is totally loose. Now, on the opposite end of that, I have some that the end is completely closed. That's coming up next. All right, so here we go. And guys, and I have up some other loose ones that I saw. Like, see, loose. And I have more loose ones around my bang area. And that was actually the last area to lock. So I don't know what it is about that part of my hair that's more resistant to locking on the ends. But it is what it is. So here we go for one that is completely closed. As you can see, there is absolutely no loose hair whatsoever. It is locked all the way through, and there also isn't a ball. It's just a straight lock, and this is one of my thicker ones. I'll show you one that's locked all the way through, and it's thinner as well. Coming next. All right, so here's one that is one of the smaller ones, but as you can see, there is no loose hair, and it is locked all the way through. Now, the other one are the ones that, honestly, they're not my favorite. And I always have been honest with you guys, although I love my hair. There, you know, like anything, there are... So like anything, there are parts of your hair that are not perfect. So you don't have to love every single aspect of everything to love your hair. So I'm going to show you the parts that, although they're not as many as there were on my first up close and personal video. And again, guys, it's in the description. I had some locks that were flatter, that were bumpier, and a lot of those imperfections have started to clear up. Now, there are some lumps that still look imperfect, but there are fewer of those. But let's find a few of those that I could do without. So one, guys, is they're not as bad, but the big fat end. You see, can you tell? And it's kind of flat. If I turn it sideways, it's not really cylinder. See if we can get closer. It's kind of like a paddle, where you can just go in the river and canoeing. I don't like those. I also have the ones that have, again, like the actual ball on the end. I believe this is one right here. Or maybe this is just another thick one. A thick end one. As you can see how the others were thin. It's not as bad as it once was, but if you can tell, the end is a lot thicker. Well, not a lot. Somewhat thicker than the rest of the lock. And it's also flat. Could do without those as well. Now let's find that one with the ball on the end. And I don't have as many anymore, so thankfully, I just found one. It's getting better. if you can tell, maybe kind of hard to tell, guys, but this one doesn't show it as well. It looks, you can tell more in real life. Try to find a different angle. Let me just find another lock. I'll be back. All right, I found one. Now, the good thing, guys, is I had to search a lot harder to find one than in the past. And that's going to be the next segment, me talking about how have I made my ends more uniform, as I mentioned in the last video. But here is the ball. I mean, you can see it. It's like a ball. It's not as disconnected, but if you can tell, it is thinner right there. And then there's a little extra ball. You see that circle of ball. I don't like these, but I leave them alone if they're solid and they're strong. And if I pull like this and it comes off, I let it go. So that leads me to my next segment on how have I made most of my ends be what I would say pretty uniform. Not perfectly, but good enough. That's up next. All right, so my method is the actual, what I call like scouting for weekends to make my ends look overall better. So I literally just take my hair and I literally just look through my ends and see, do I see a disconnect? Is there a lock that is thick, and then it's sort of spacey, or there's a hole there, or you can just tell it's not going to survive long. And if I see it and it's very disconnected, I just gently pull and see, does it give? If it's strong, I'll leave it alone. But if it's very weak, I pull at it and it typically comes off with ease. And that actually happened in real time on my last video. And again, I'll try to remember to put that in the description box, excuse me. Now, another thing I do, guys, besides when I don't have time to just sit there and just look at my ends, I literally do what I call the feel. I take my hands and I pull through. I just do this. I just go through. And what happens is, without looking forward, if there's a piece of the end that is weak, it literally comes off. If it's a very weak end. Remember, just like when you were a loose natural, your ends are the oldest part of your hair. And they will get weaker. So if you find yourself with locks, even though your locks literally hold on to dear life in a positive way, a very good protective style, some of the ends will get weaker over time. So if you're doing this, you may discover that when you just pull, not tugging hard, just a little slightly moving through your hair, and see, does anything come? Now in that situation, nothing did. And then the third one, which is what I do the least, or have done the least, and I had to do this more often in the beginning of my journey, was when I had, when my locks were really new. I would say maybe a year in. I barely messed with them, guys, the first few months. But a year in, I may have noticed some of my lock that it was locked, and it was thin in the middle, and then there was the end. The thinner spot may not have been very thin, but it was thin enough that I didn't like the look of it. And even if that end would never leave, my thought process was, I don't want a lock that is thick, or uniform, thin, and then thick at the end. So I would literally snip with the scissors the area that was thin but still strong and very locked. I never snipped into an area that I thought would make the lock unravel. And that's in a very, very old video. I'm gonna go back in the archives and put that in the box as well. And it helped. And again, in the beginning, I did no such thing. But once I start feeling that my locks were starting to lock, I've done that combination of the snipping where, because this is my thing, even if the lock never ends, I don't want to look where I have thin, uniform, thin, thick. So I would prefer to let that go, snip it, and let it grow naturally. But in the latter part of my journey, I'm in year 3, I can feel any ends, or I literally look for them. And that has literally allowed my ends, guys, to be, for the most part, uniform, with a few exceptions. Now, what is the status of most of my ends? I'll tell you up next. Most of my ends are a combination of that straight look and open end. But the open end varies. I have some ends that there's about this much of the end that is open, and others is just the very end that is open. And sometimes it's so little you can't tell from a distance. Let me give you an example. This is an example of, it looks like it may be uniform all the way through, but if you got close, the very end of my lock is loose. It is not locked. And I have naturally coily hair, kind of like spirally. It was 4A, but it's spirally, a distinct curl pattern. And so some of those ends just never locked all the way to the tippy tip. But again, it's kind of like, although they didn't lock, they kind of like curl on themselves to create the illusion of it being locked down to the very end. I don't know if you all can tell in this video, but as you can see, most of my ends, that little curl you see is a loose end. So I can find this one. Yeah, here we go. Here's one with the actual spiral. See that? From ECI, it may look like, oh, that's locked all the way through. No, it's not. It's almost locked all the way through. But this entire end is a coil. But guess what? It's going nowhere. It's not going to open because at the point that it locks, it's almost like glue. This lock is in there and it's not going anywhere unless I pick at it and probably try to comb it out. The next thing I want to show you guys is are my edges in my kitchen. It's been about 3 weeks. I'm at the halfway point between my retightening. So I want to warn my fine hair ladies that when you have fine hair, your shorter hair around the parameter of your hair, it will crawl out. And so that's probably one of the things that you can get frustrated about or just accept it, okay? So if you see here, do you see all this? It's not because I have an excessive amount of new growth right now. It's because those shorter hairs literally crawl out. Look at that. Oh, someone's getting a call. Excuse that, guys. So as you can see, like all of this is, I'm going to take this little bobby pin out because I have my hair behind my ear. Expect to have, if you have a lot of baby hairs, they're going to be out. I'm just going to warn. They're going to crawl out. All of this hair is intact, and put in for the gods. My loctician can grab almost any piece of hair and get it in there. But after about 2-3 weeks, it's out. It is what it is, okay? And what you can do, you can tie it down. I can tame this if I feel like it. I can spray with my water bottle. And I brought it this time. I forgot it last time, guys. Here it is. This little fine mist. Now, you can see this. Let me show you how long it goes. Spray. Wait for it. Wait for it. Oh, here we go. If you pump, oh, here we go. Wait for it. Wait for it. Oh, it's awesome. And it's light enough to mist your hair. Or you can spray and spray and spray and wet it up. You can see that? See how you can, it's buildable mist. So I could have left it at the point where I had a light mist, or I can literally saturate my hair fully. But what I do sometimes, guys, is I just spray those edges. And then I tie it down with a scarf. And when I wake up, and again, you can see this fine hair, guys. Again, it's still there. When I wake up, all this hair is flattened. Now, let me show you this kitchen. Lord have mercy. All right, so I'm trying to be in the frame. Let's see if y'all can see it. Let me move this up so you can see. Do you see all this hair? And this is probably one of the things that aggravates me the most about having fine hair and having locks. I have a lot of baby hairs, and the hair literally, like, depending on if I've sweated, it's a bunch of little curls all over the back. Or if it's like frizzed out, it may be an entire fro. And all of these are literally in the lock when I get my hair retightened. But they don't stay. So if that drives you nuts and you have fine hair, be warned. The hair will crawl out, especially if you have curlier fine hair. I'm going to spray it so you can kind of see it more distinctly. I mean, guys, look, let me turn around. I mean, I got a whole full-blown afro back here. I mean, I can literally like finger coil this stuff if I want to. You see it. But it comes with the territory. And again, if I want to see it less, I may use that curl mousse from Cantu that I told you all about. I mean, is it Cantu or is it Cream of Nature? Cream of Nature. And I can tie it down. And as you can see, it can smooth in with the rest. But the other option is to get your parameters done more frequently. Maybe go every 3 to 4 weeks and get your parameter done, and then get the rest if that drives you nuts. And last but not least, we're going to go over lock sizes. I'm going to show you the varying range of some of my teeniest locks to some of my thickest ones. Because many of you all asked, what are your lock sizes? There are a bunch, but that was on purpose. Some of it is there are certain parts of my hair that's finer, and so the lock is just naturally thinner. And the other parts were my loctician made this section thicker, and like in the middle, and then some of the locks around the parameter were smaller. So a combination of the smaller and the thicker locks gives you a full look, smaller looking locks without having as many. I have 350 locks, and if she made all of my locks as small as my thinnest locks, I would be in the 4s, 5s, maybe 6s, and my locks would be too thin for my fine hair. So let me show you those sizes coming up next. Okay, so this is probably an example, guys, of one of my thicker locks. You can see it's got a little grit to it. I mean, let's go against that white. It's pretty thick. Now, it's still thinner than your traditional locks, but it's got a little, it's thick enough. Now, let's find one of those medium ones. I would say this is a medium one. As you can see, we got a little smaller, maybe like small, large, for my head. And then we can start getting more of the true medium, which is about this size. As you can tell, we're getting smaller. Another medium size. And this is probably the bulk of my locks, guys, are probably in this range, okay? The bulk. Or maybe, I don't know. Now we're starting to get thinner. And this is a shorter one and you can see another loose end. Okay, see that little curly end? But it gets a lot tinier. And I'm going to find, well, you can start to see this is what I would consider a small one. Now let me find that real teeny. It's when it's so thin, I hate it. And it's actually strong, but I promise you guys, it drives me nuts. Let me find her. Okay, so I found some. So as you can see, this one is thin. The end's a little thicker, but the overall lock itself is thin. And this is a really thin one. Can y'all tell? Like, I mean, she's small. It's also one of my shorter ones. But, I mean, it's thin. So, yes, I hope this was good, guys. I wanted to have a more up close and personal look at what's going on with the state of my locks on a more in-depth level. And if you have any more questions, let me know. Don't forget to follow me on TikTok and Instagram at Microlocs and more. And like and subscribe. And leave some comments and talk to me. I look forward to hearing from you all again. See you later. And you know what I say. Have a great day. Bye, guys.